So a lot of this stuff, I always vacillate between that everything bad in the world is the media's fault and everything is politicians' fault. But really, it's both of them, right? Like when you watch the White House Correspondents' Dinner and you really see how close these guys are. And, you know, they call it nerd prom and they think they're so edgy and cool because they're all nerds together. But it's like, you guys are going to parties together. You guys are going to dinners together. There are a gajillion examples of politicians being married to members of the media, or their children are in the media, or every type of nepotistic connection you can possibly imagine. Do you think it's basically 50-50 at who's at fault over how screwed up our whole conversation is?
No, I think it's entirely due to the left. And then I think we can... No, really, listen, you talk about media. What do you really think? Yeah. Yes, you talk about media, entertainment industry. It's entirely to the left, wildly to the left. And so you're right about these relationships, right? These cozy relationships between media and members of, members of office. But then they try and take this and they go, so mainstream media is just, it's funded by the Koch brothers and big oil. Listen, you cannot tune in to CNN, MSNBC, they could go Fox News, Fox News, Fox News. Okay, what about ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, MSNBC? Every single other news source that's not Fox News is pushing the man-made global climate change agenda. Sorry, I have to get that right. It's not global warming. They're always pushing, you know, the LGBTQ AAIP agenda right now with the laws in North Carolina. They're always pushing the anti-corporate, anti-Republican agenda. So people think because there's some kind of corporate influence that it automatically means that media is conservative. It couldn't be further from the truth. You can look at the numbers, you can look at the statistics. An overwhelming number of people, not only in executive positions, but people who work in the industry, whether it's Hollywood, music, or media, are entirely left. So if people watch it and they think that they're dishonest or they feel like the mainstream media has misled them, I would agree that rests entirely at the feet of the left. Republicans have had plenty of opportunities and they've screwed it up too, Fox News included, and a lot of AM radio. I get it. But the reason Fox News and AM radio are singled out by the left is because those are the only two mediums that aren't 100% dominated by far left influencers. So I want to make sure people who are watching this, you know, the young audience, go, corporate media, man. It's still to the left, very far to the left, and I hope people realize that.
Yeah, Ben Shapiro laid out a very similar case for that when he was on. But all right, I know a lot of my audience is going to be shaking their fist at some of the things you just said, so let's back up a little bit. Climate change. Now, I had Michael Mann, Dr. Michael Mann from Penn State. He's one of the most respected climate scientists in the world. He laid out the case for climate change. He laid out the 97% of scientists in this field that believe that man-made climate change is real. So, all right, I let him on for an hour and laid it out. So I'll give you 2 minutes to debunk it. Go.
Well, listen, I'm not going to debunk climate change, but the 97% is bullshit. If you look at the questionnaire, basically, if you didn't believe in climate change, you were not included in the sample study. This is taken from 2 examples. People can look it up. We've written about it on the website. There is a petition out there. Now, again, I'm not a scientist, so I'm not going to talk from the point of view of a scientist, but I will talk from the point of view of consensus. Little known fact, science isn't governed by consensus, it's governed by what's right. But if we're going to use the consensus argument, there's a petition out there with over 30,000 registered scientists, several thousand atmospheric scientists, which means that right away you're in double-digit percentage points of the qualified atmospheric scientists proactively going out of their way to sign a pledge saying we don't believe in either man-made climate change or that man-made climate change will have the catastrophic results that these people are pushing. That number is patent bullshit. And a great example, and we ran this, is when you have Ted Cruz in there with a Sierra Club, the head of the Sierra Club, and he asked them about the pause. This is the head of the Sierra Club, the most influential environmental impact lobby in D.C. We want to talk about corruption, and Ted Cruz goes, well, I want to know how you explain the pause. The head of the Sierra Club goes to his intern, well, we would like to rely on the consensus of the 97%. But those scientists are pointing to people like the Sierra Club. And the Sierra Club, this head of the Sierra Club doesn't have any numbers to back it up. Do I think that the climate is changing? Yes. Is it possible that there's man-made climate change? Maybe. Will that have catastrophic results? We can't prove that yet. People don't agree on that.
So you want to wait? You want to wait till Miami is?
Miami's already supposed to be gone, Dave. Anyone who watched An Inconvenient Truth, which was the big catalyst that put Al Gore on a board at Apple to collect billions of dollars while masseuses were rubbing his feet and he was doing their arches, know that all these predictions were wrong. They were verifiably false. There's more ice in the Antarctic than ever before. I'm not saying there's no way that humans could be contributing to climate change, but to believe that it is going to have catastrophic results and to believe that the United States government can fix it is ridiculous. And how do they want to fix it? More legislation, more control, more power. If someone has a vested interest here, again, if I could get big oil money, if I could get big fracking money, I would take it and let you know. I've not received a dime, but if someone's grant depends on them saying that the earth is warming and we need to fix it now, those people have a vested interest in proving their theory, and they're not disclosing it. And all they do is say, I'm funded by big oil. I'm just saying that I'm pretty skeptical, and I've looked at the list of 30,000 scientists signing a petition. Just that list means the 97% number is complete bullshit if that were a valid scientific argument, which it isn't.
All right. Well, in the spirit of healthy discussion, I had Man on. I gave you your 2 minutes. You took every second of it, and now let people do a little Googling. That's a thing, right? And let them see what they think, and then I'll bring up.
And I'm not mad at you. I just know, well, this guy's not a scientist. I'm not a scientist. I'm not claiming to be a scientist.
By the way, big fracking money, is that a thing? Because I would love to be. I'm funded by the big fracking people. That just sounds good.
Well, that's a big part of what's contributed to nearly all of the new employment under Barack Obama's presidency, despite his best efforts. It is it is a miracle. Fracking is an absolute miracle for United States energy dependence. But I guess leftists want us to be dependent on countries like Saudi Arabia, where they have no EPAs. They couldn't give two shits about a clean atmosphere, and ship it on tankers overseas. The BP oil spill, Exxon Valdez, that happens every year, multiple times a year in the middle of the ocean. You just don't see it. So there's no seagull caught in the oil spill that people feel bad about on a CNBC report. And people act like where do you think your electric car, where do you think the energy comes from? Two giant non-recyclable batteries? Most of our electricity in the United States, a significant portion still comes from coal. You're plugging it in, you're using coal energy. People just don't use, it's a white guilt thing. It's a social justice warrior white guilt. And I'm not saying that someone cannot make a valid argument for climate change. I'm not saying that. And if that scientist were on here with me, he would eat my lunch. I absolutely agree. But when you are trying to take away my private rights as an American citizen, that's where I have the right to be skeptical. And, you have Bill Nye saying that we should be jailed now. That's crazy.
Right, all right, so I'm with you on that. And of course, as a more limited government guy, I'm with you on the idea that government can't solve everything. If the climate really is out of control, the idea that the United States government or even the UN, they get together and they have all the Kyoto conference and the Paris thing that they had and all this stuff. They get together, they say all these things. Literally everything they say is non-binding. There's no enforcement that the UN has to do any of these things. So they sign these papers. They say, oh, this is what we're going to do over the course of the next 30 years. And, whether they do it or... Yeah?
I went to the climate summit. Yeah, the one in Cancun.
Yeah.
For people who say, oh, it was fear-mongering. First off, the Kyoto Protocol is total and complete, utter horseshit, and it would destroy people in third world countries who need energy. These people aren't talking about running their cars. They're trying to heat a can of beans over an ironing board in a trash can, right? So your solar panels might feel good if you're living out there in Palm Springs. These people can't afford it. Secondly, I was there when Ted Turner got up on stage and proposed communist China's one-child policy. He wanted that to be binding on the protocol. I was there when he proposed that. So when people say I'm the extremist, just saying, hey, let's wait a little bit, and this guy's getting up with world leaders proposing a one-child policy. By the way, how do you enforce that? Again, do the Googling. It's not by writing an angry letter. These people are extremists. They're religious extremists, and that's my issue, not a debate over scientific consensus. But when someone wants to tell me I can't have more than one child, government mandated, we have some problems.
Okay, so let's split the difference for the sake of the conversation. Let's say between Michael Mann and what you've said, that the truth is somewhere in between. Maybe it's a little human-made, and let's say something's happening. Let's say maybe it's not even human-made, but let's just say something's happening right now.
Sure.
So for you, as someone that obviously economics is a big part of what you think and what you care about, what the government's role should be is based in economics. Don't you think that the government could perhaps do a little more to invest in green energy so that there's still an economy there? So maybe we'll burn less coal, but there's a lot of money to be made in wind power and solar power and all of those other things. So there you're not losing, you're just shifting where money is, not losing money. Or not losing jobs.
Sir?
What's that?
Are you out of your tree, sir? Solyndra? Look at green companies. The biggest green company, I think, in the world.
No, I know. Everyone yells Solyndra. I know. That's one. That's one.
No, not Solyndra, but another one last week just went bankrupt. I don't have it in front of me. We wrote about it on the website. It consistently doesn't work. When you try and force the market and manipulate the market, that's how you end up with big bank bailouts. That's how you end up with the housing crisis. That's how you end up with Solyndra. It doesn't work. There are people who are going to respond to market forces, and we're going to get better energy. We're going to find other ways to power us through the next century. And by the way, we have more than enough energy right now and natural resources for more than a century. The peak oil myth is another thing. It's a myth, and particularly now that you include fracking into the equation. No, I don't think the government should step in and force companies to. The only way they can do that now is force companies to invest in wind or solar, and inevitably they end up going bankrupt because it doesn't work. And by the way, a big reason it doesn't work is because of Democrats, right? Why were wind turbines killed out there on the East Coast? Because of people like Ted Turner, who didn't want to look at them and they were killing eagles or whatever it was. Why were solar panels killed in the Mojave Desert? Because of some endangered species of mosquito or insect. I don't even know why mosquitoes exist. I think you could feed fish with something that is much less annoying. I don't get it. But that was the reason in the Mojave Desert. If you can't put solar panels in the Mojave Desert and you can't put wind turbines off the coast of Cape Cod, you can't do it.
Yeah, you know, I was driving up to, a couple months back, I was driving up to Sonoma from here in LA, and there's a huge swath of area where you pass tons and tons of turbines in the mountains. You know, nobody lives near them or anything. I actually thought it looked really cool. Like, it felt like I was like, oh, this is what the future is. But yeah, I guess people don't want that in their backyard. But all right, let's leave that one. But let's talk about...
but liberals do it. That's the problem. Liberals say you have to invest in this, and then screw you on the other side. Hey, we're going to give you a grant. We want you to, or we're going to punish you with some kind of tariffs if you don't invest enough green energy. Okay, fine. Let's put up these panels in the Mojave Desert. Can't do that. There's a mosquito. Are you shitting me? That's the process. They're wrong on every turn. I'm just saying, let them do what's most profitable as long as they're obeying the rules, and then we don't have to screw a company and bail them out with taxpayer dollars.
So if anything, I think you think you're being the true environmentalist by not killing the birds that are flying into these things.
I don't care about birds. Birds are jerks.
Birds are jerks. Birds are jerks. All right, good finish for that one. All right, so let's talk about the abortion thing for a little bit, because this is the one that I think there is so little middle ground, and I think if people really would talk about it in an honest way and not constantly demonize everyone else's intent, I think we could make a little headway. So you're against abortion altogether, right? Do you have some exceptions?
Here's what I do. Okay, yeah, I think it's murder. Do I think the best way to deal with an incest or a rape problem is to kill the child? No. But since it's less than a single percentage point of abortions, okay, let's take it off the table. Let's say, fine for that. Are liberals, are leftists willing to do anything else to curb abortions? Are they willing at all to deviate from free abortion, on demand, anytime, period? And they're not.
Okay, so I'm with you on the. So I think I'll say it. You took a principled approach there. You're saying that there's this 1% now. Everyone makes it sound like the rape situation or the mother dying is a much bigger percentage than it is. So I'm going to take your word that it is 1%. I'll go with you on that one.
Don't fact check me at all. Just take my word for it. That's what I live for, Dave.
Again, Google people. But okay, so that you're saying I'm willing, as someone that believes this is murder, I'm willing to just throw that out for the sort of good of the conversation. So okay, I think that's a pretty decent place to start. I mean, my feeling on it is, at some point, I do believe that it is murder. I mean, I don't know. For me, it's like, I don't know what the point is. I don't know if that's and this is, of course, what scientists and philosophers and, people have debated forever. Is it the second the sperm touches the egg? I don't think so. I think there might be a couple months in there where it's the cosmic stew before it is a human. But I've had people on my show when I've talked about abortion who have said until it is literally out of the woman's body, you can have an abortion. I would never go for that. I mean, there are babies born at 5 months because something's wrong, and they live their perfectly normal lives.
Well, and
so
President Obama voted to not defend babies that were born from survived abortions and being tossed in a linen closet in Illinois. He was the only person of any Democrat or Republican in the state who said, no, we don't need to protect them. These babies who have survived abortions, let them die in a linen closet. And he said because there were already laws in the books. The reason this was there on the floor for a vote was because it wasn't working. So again, if we want to talk radical, babies who are breathing, who are crying, who are left in a linen closet to die, Barack Obama voted to ensure that could still happen as opposed to voting present, which he did a significant amount of time. Again, so I don't think it's extremist for me to say, all right, let's toss those out. What can we do to limit abortions versus someone saying, no, even if they survive the abortion, that's the lady's choice, let it die. And again, it's been painted from the social justice warrior left because right away I'm a sexist. Or even you, for what you said, you would have feminists who would be all over you. Well, you have no right at any point. Even though there's a scientific argument to be made at conception or much earlier than feminists want to admit. It doesn't matter. We're considered the extremists because we're against it at all. And I don't think that what I'm saying is untenable or less reasonable than Barack Obama's voting record on abortion. I think it's far more reasonable.
Right. Well, that's why I hate this discussion is so stupid, because the right makes it sound like the left just wants to kill babies, and the left makes it sound like the right just hates women, and neither one of those things are true. I assume
the left wants to
you're
kill
married
babies.
to a woman, aren't you? So I'm pretty sure you're pro-woman.
I'm not you, Dave. I'm married to a woman. That's what marriage has always been.
Oh, right. We'll get to that one too. So I would.
He's a homosexual.
So stupid.
I'm so in Palm Beach. There was an old person that just on the beach said it didn't realize he's a homosexual. And I was sitting there with my wife, just like I can't believe we
about you. Someone was talking about you.
No, not about me, but about someone else who clearly was. And I don't know. No, it's just been ringing in my head. I was looking for an excuse to do it. I'm sorry, Dave.
No. Well, you're working out too much. You know what I mean? That's the tip-off for a lot of people. So with the abortion thing, so if you take the position as you've just laid out, and you were to not force women to have babies, it sounds silly, but say a woman can't have an abortion, but she can't afford it, she doesn't want the child, et cetera, would you be for having the government help in some way once that child is in the world? Because that's where I think we can maybe get to a little common ground on this. It's one thing to say, all right, well, I'm against abortion, but then you know what? There's still a child there who's ultimately the victim because of the parents' poor decision to either have sex in the first place or go ahead and do what they had to do.
Well, I disagree with your premise. Forced to have a baby, again, if we're taking away the less than a percentage point of a percent with rape and incest.
I get it. People are
to have sex.
No, I get that, but I'm talking about after that. People are going to make mistakes. People are going to do stupid things.
But it's important because they oppose anything that would prevent that situation. A great example is, listen, and I'm not a huge fan of all the foreign aid that George Bush did, but who did the most good for Africa, the AIDS epidemic, than all presidents combined, was George Bush, and it wasn't even close. And it wasn't just because of money, it's because he was the first guy. People don't like him because he's a Christian, and they hate the abstinence education, but he went in and said, hey, if you rape a virgin, you're still going to have AIDS. You guys should actually abstain from sex. Let's teach them morality as it relates to sex, and then throw some condoms at them. And it worked. Verifiably, it worked. Same thing with Christian conservatives here in the United States. Someone saying, listen, the only thing that stops this idea that abstinence only education, that's not a mainstream thing, it's not a thing, okay? Abstinence only means the only thing that works is abstinence. The only thing that can guarantee you won't get pregnant or prevent an STD is abstinence. Leftists don't want to do that because that's a moral absolute. That needs to be taught to kids. And then you can teach them to be more responsible. But the leftist voting constituency, listen, they're not becoming more sexually responsible. The left has done a great, listen, let's just talk about the black American community, a huge disservice. A black child has the likelihood of being born as they do of being aborted at this point. It's almost a 50-50 shot. And that was a proactive setup from people like Sanger and in underprivileged neighborhoods. There is no reason in 2016 that they shouldn't learn, and if the Democrats want to talk about helping impoverished communities, that they should not have measurably improved these numbers of people getting pregnant or accidental pregnancies. They haven't. They have no interest in doing that. So my fight has always been along further on the beginning of that logic bus, right, where you can ding, ding, let's get off here. And the left doesn't want to because inevitably it comes back to more control and Planned Parenthood and federal funding. Yes, I support adoption. We've considered adopting. I think that's a great thing. If you look at people who adopt, it tends to be Christian conservatives as a general rule, or transsexuals, depending on what the theme of the day is if you're watching I Am Kate. But it's true. They were all upset at I Am Kate. They're like, can you believe that I have to disclose that I'm trans? Yes. If you're trying to adopt a child as a mother, I think it would be pertinent information that you have a dick. I don't think that's hate speech to check that box. What, does this have? They're just not allowed to make hair. You said bullshit like 5 times.
Yeah, no, you're allowed. Hey, listen, I told you I have a crack team of researchers here. They just flashed in front of me as you were talking that on your 1% stat, on the rape thing. They're saying the closest they can find to the 1% thing was a study done in 1989. So there you go. So, but I think your point is that maybe it's 5%, maybe it's 1%.
I would like to hear them come up with a different number, because again, the left doesn't even want to present a number. They just want to say, well, what about? What about if there's a Siamese? I've even heard this in college humanities class, right? Right when you learn correlation does not equal causation, and a few buzzwords, or like Young Turks, where they just play the drinking game with mainstream media, right? But they don't want to educate themselves on what that actually means. The left should present some numbers on that. They don't want to. They operate in the dark. I want to shine a light on as much of it as possible. But yeah, it's hard to get those numbers because people don't want to report rape. And so the left says, you just have to take our word for it. 1 in 4 women is raped. And if you argue against it, you're sexist, which is a complete, total BS number. That means 1 of every 4 women we know has been raped. Anyone with a shred of common sense knows it's a lie.
Yeah, well, that goes to the lack of trust that I think the mainstream media, without using that as the pejorative style, but just, the cable news operation has just become just terrible in the way that it reports news. They're basically just doing panels all day of people that got everything wrong 6 months before, and they just trope them out again, right? I mean, you can literally, I was watching CNN the other day, and it's like, oh, there's Gloria Borger again. She predicted everything wrong. Now what's she going to predict? And they do this with everybody. And then, of course, it's also campaign managers debating other campaign managers. You are never going to get anything remotely close to true. And then, of course, their analysts are also former administration officials whose jobs it used to be to lie. If you're Jay Carney, the press secretary, and now you're supposed to be an analyst. It's the height of stupidity. So that's mainstream media, fine. It's easy to knock it, as you just alluded to. But I also think there's a huge danger now with what's going on with the online media that has completely dropped the ball. I think there was a moment. There was about a 3-year window a couple of years back where the online media started doing some really beautiful stuff, really talking about things in a new way, talking about money in politics, talking about real issues that just couldn't percolate up to the mainstream. And then what happened is everyone jumped in and said, well, I'm a news guy. and I say this with all due irony. I do the best I can here. But I'm in the online world. I hold myself to. No,
but don't sell yourself short. Listen, you actually try. You're not just regurgitating. You have this whole studio. You do original content. You're not just regurgitating clickbait crap.
No,
right?
For sure.
I respect that. So people watching should appreciate that about you. You have people out there who've made millions in online media and never so much as written an original column because they've just figured out we spend X amount on advertising and we make this amount back by just aggregating the best stories with a hat tip at the bottom. And you're right, it's a real problem.
Right, so there's a lot of that, and there's just new sites popping up every day, funded by a lot of times people with a lot of money to push an agenda, and it's all being presented as news. So how do you navigate what you find is true and what you find is worth listening to? I think it's really hard to do. I mean, even when I try to follow things that I don't agree with, and I follow some things I agree with, and half the time I'm like, I don't know if either one of these are giving me anything close to the truth.
No, I think you're right. And that's a real problem. We've been plagiarized a lot. And I know people, they'll excuse anyone of being clickbait because we do anywhere from 4 to 6 articles a day compared to 60 or 70, which is typical of these places. Just have staffs of people, and all they do is find out a title. Like for me, it was a point where we severed relationships just when they were just Marco Rubio, billionaire, secret closeted gay boy toy. And I was like, okay, this is enough. I can't even be friends with you people. That's been a big problem with the Trump situation. You have these people who support Trump, who work for some of these big sites. And, we've even received backroom threats if we don't step up and get in line for Trump from conservatives. They see me as more of an enemy than leftists. And I've praised Trump when he's been right, and I've criticized him when he's been wrong. Same thing with Ted Cruz or Marco Rubio. But the issue is they'll also go out and go, look, we have these numbers. A few of these conservative sites said, sites that supported Trump did way better than those who didn't. It's changing, guys. Well, all that says is you're just, clickbait crap, and you're proud of it. It doesn't matter if it's true. It doesn't matter if it's honest. It doesn't matter if there's original content. And yeah, it is a real problem. What I do and what I recommend people do if they're trying to figure out the truth, I'll follow you. People like the Young Turks, I can't stand them. They're almost always wrong. HuffPo, Salon. That's why we're the first at louderwithcrowder.com. Like, we only have me, Not Gay Jared, Courtney, Casey, Brody. That's our entire staff. But we're constantly reading Salon and HuffPo and BuzzFeed and then responding to it because most conservatives don't even have it on their radar. So I always recommend just listen. No one is unbiased. have stuff that's far to the left, have stuff that's far to the right, so you at least know what both sides are saying, and then draw your own conclusions. Trying to do the CNN, we're straight down the middle thing, it's a lie. It's never existed. So I always recommend that people have both clear left and right and make their decisions, because either way, someone's going to try and pitch you.
Yeah, so is the real irony here that, everyone says, well, the mainstream media is funded by the corporations, and those are the same corporations that are funding the candidates, and blah, 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 and there's obviously some truth to that without question, and that shows why some of it sucks. But that the online media, I don't think people have sort of caught up to what you just said, which it is, because it's just driven by clicks. The truth is the first thing out the window, because all you want to do is write the most salacious headline, get somebody to click out of Twitter, get somebody to watch that ad on YouTube, and all of that. And I know very much from what we did from literally day one. It was the first thing that I did on this show, was lay out the rules of how I'm going to guide this show. And I said, we're not going to do clickbait. And I know, even sometimes I'll talk to my producers after, and we'll know that we can get more views if we frame this a certain way, or if we try to rig the system. And we go out of our way not to do it, because I'm trying to do something that I'm proud of. But a lot of these guys, they just want clicks, and that's no better than being funded by a corporation or anything else.
No, absolutely not. I mean, we know that we could do twice the numbers. We've run the numbers if we just talked about Trump nonstop. Yeah. And we don't. We just don't do it. Now, there's a difference. You want people to click your content. You want to grow. Our rule is anything we title, people, it's a window, right? The window to a shop. They know exactly what they're getting, and they come in because they want more. Not, whoa, the bombshell Donald Trump dropped that you won't believe. Our title would be something like, Donald Trump accuses Ted Cruz of extramarital affairs. Here's the evidence.
I like the head wave you did with the other one. Could you do that more?
You won't believe. Absolutely smashes Marco Rubio. You see these all the time. Or same thing, if Bernie Sanders lets the cat out of the bag on Hillary Clinton, if it doesn't let anyone know and they have to click it to find out what it is, that's clickbait. Having a title that people want to click and learn more, and we've learned, listen, long term, we've seen a lot of companies drop like flies, and listen, we're not perfect and we've screwed up, but our interactions on social media as opposed to clicks far outnumber clicks, because the people who do read it, click it, share it, want other people to be informed. And so a lot of these people have taken a crap on social media or YouTube by just getting the click, but the retention rate is terrible, or people leave. And that's being fixed. There's an anti-conservative bias at Facebook. But I appreciate that you do have integrity with this program, and that you do try and frame it that way. A lot of people out there don't, and I will say it's probably worse in the conservative community than the left, because...
Wow, you're conceding some ground.
Well, I concede ground all the time. Listen, your hair is better than me right now. You've got a better makeup team. You had a better vacation than I did. You made better choices with that.
That's true. That's true.
This is true. Listen, you're prettier than I am, but I think there's a lot of ground to be conceded. The thing I like about Donald Trump is that he doesn't apologize when he doesn't think he's wrong. The problem is he never thinks he's wrong. If I'm wrong, I'll apologize. If I don't think I'm wrong, I'm not going to apologize because someone marches me out. And that's a big difference, too, between me and other conservatives who you may have had on the show. No one pays me. We make ad revenue, or YouTube, or starting a membership. It won't change the free content. I pay my employees and hopefully pay myself, because I've worked for other people. And I know you've been in that situation, and it's a really tough situation to be, because someone else has final call. And, I mean, a good example would be, like, I know you don't want to talk about them because you worked there, but like the Young Turks. I mean, the stuff that they just say is just it's just untrue. It's just untrue, or they go on now, and they don't even try, right? It's just Cenk saying, hey, come on, simple stuff, folks, okay? Don't be ridiculous. And then Anita's like, yeah. And then they have that guy who's clearly just trotted out because he's gay, and he just reiterates what Anita says. Like, is it Anita? I don't know her name. I always forget her name.
I'm just letting you go. I'm just letting you go here.
Is it Anita?
I'm just letting you go. I don't know of an Anita.
Okay, fine, whatever it is. But they have that guy come out. She's like, yeah, I totally think you're right. It was kind of like when Rachel Maddow started, and she would just come on and say, I agree with you, Keith, and that was it. It's just, and it gets to a point where there's no one on there to question them. So they can bitch about mainstream media all they want, but they do have funding. Of course, people know. It's not like it's always been entirely independently run, or they've built their own studios. People know that there's some money behind them, and they have a vested interest in protecting a narrative. My only thing is I just ask that people be honest. I just ask people be honest about their point of view, and then let the cards fall where they may. If people do that, we do not have a problem. Even if you're Jesse Ventura, fluoride in the tap, and deodorant is a government form of mind control, go with it as long as you're honest about it.
That's my man, Jesse Ventura. An Aura.
Oh, that's right. Sorry, I forgot he's at
You
Aura.
see what we'll edit that out. No, guess what? We don't have to edit that out because Aura said it.
He's going to school us on the facts. Jesse Ventura's know the facts. The fluoride in your tap.
You know, it's a beautiful thing. I've said this before, but the beauty of my situation with Aura is from day one they said to me, don't make the show that you think we want you to make the show you want to make. And they have never once said literally one word to me about editorial or any of the direction we're doing. Anyway, listen, we could talk forever, and I've thoroughly enjoyed this, and this is what the Battle of Ideas is all about. So to wrap this thing up, do you think that by 2020 that we will have a viable third party? Because it's pretty obvious to me that there is a new center growing, a group of people who are a little more socially liberal, and I know you're obviously not as socially liberal as I am, but who have a little more of that, who want a smaller government, who want to figure out a fairer tax system, but still believe in strong defense. Like, I think there's something really growing here who really believe in free speech, of course, and all that. So do you think there is a moment where we might get a third party coming in 2020? That's my hope out of all the craziness from this situation.
Well, I have two questions for that, and I know we have to go. Where do you think that I'm not as socially liberal as you?
Well, I think if we skipped over the whole gay marriage thing, but I know you're basically okay on it, and I know you like to kind of joke about it, but you're basically, it doesn't really.
Well, it's a state issue, and the Supreme Court, again, it's a power grab that they had no authority to take, just like.
Well, it was equal protection clause, so, but we could argue about the legalities of that all day long. But I know you're basically there.
Well, my whole point is that people will say, well, Ted Cruz wants to ban dildos, as like an example. See, no, he didn't. He was fighting for states' rights because there was some kind of dildo banning thing in states. I don't think there should be a federal Department of Education.
There was a dildo banning thing? Did that go completely over my head?
Exactly. This is the whole thing, of course, and it's put out. And he was fighting for states' rights in front of I don't know which high court it was. I don't know if it was the Supreme Court. The point is, yeah, listen, there can be a state law that bans scary-looking hats. They've existed. I think they're silly, but I think a state has the right to do that. Just like I think a state has the right to declare polygamy legal if they want to, right, if we're at that point. The problem with people is the Supreme Court. When people talk about abortion or talk about social issues, like I think drugs are a state issue. And so people think because I'm deeply Christian conservative myself and I'm open about it, that somehow I believe that should be enforced. I don't. So I wanted to just clarify that. As far as third party, well, you know, you say fair tax. See, that comes. I don't know. People need to put a number on it. I'm not going to be standing in the centrist party if I don't agree with these people on policy and ideas. Free speech is great, but there's got to be more to it than that. And so, I think the Tea Party was effective in taking over the Republican Party and keeping it accountable for a season. And now we have this big problem. Maybe you'll see that with the Democrat Party. I don't think you're going to see a third party anytime soon that's viable. And I don't want to see a fracturing of the votes where, like in Canada, you can have a prime minister who's elected with 35% of the vote. You know, listen, that's the reason the two-party system exists. This guy doesn't represent everyone, but 50% or so of the population on both sides feel like there is enough of a representation. And that's better than 15 candidates representing this specific niche really, really well. That's how you fragment it, and you get democratic socialism because all of a sudden you have enough of a mob who bands together, and they can democratically vote to take away someone else's rights.
Yeah, so, I mean, I hear you on that, but the more I think about it, I see that 50-50 thing as just being this much of something that's really this big, and we don't talk about all those other ideas out there. So
this is going to be a GIF. Dave Rubin doing.
Oh, no. I walked right into that one. All right, listen, we're going to flip the script right now, and I'm going to join you on your show, so we're going to put the link below right over there on the YouTube machine.
Well, give me a plug. Give my site a plug. You didn't even plug anything.
I'm about to do the plugs.
Okay.
You guys could check out Louder with Crowder. It's on the YouTube, and it's pretty much everywhere. You have like 18,000 methods of distribution, but it's youtube.com/Steven Crowder. That's Steven with a V. And do you want to do one other pimping?
Yeah, well, it's louderwithcrowder.com, because sometimes we'll get banned stuff either from YouTube or Facebook. So louderwithcrowder.com is where people can subscribe to anything, and there are articles. But I appreciate the valiant effort, and thank you for the plug.